Good morning, you guys. Today I have a special book for you. Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. This is a 4.1 reading level book. It is actually a Caldecott medal winner. Not just an honorable mention or anything, but this was the medal winner. That means the year this book was published, it was the highest honor it could get. And this book was published in the year 1941. I remember reading this book as a child, and it was an older book then, but it is such a neat story. This book belongs to my sister, Anita, and she lives in Boston part-time because she is actually a flight attendant. And so when she's in Boston, she sees all the places that they mention in this book because it's written about Boston. And it's written about, there's a pond in Boston, and you'll learn all about it in this book, but there are ducks every year there. And they literally see ducks and baby ducks. So after I finish the book, I'll add a few pictures from my sister in Boston at the end of the video if you want to see them. And she's taken pictures of ducks, and there's actually a statue in Boston of Make Way for Ducklings too. I'll share with you guys. So let's start. And it talks about a family of mallard ducks. A mallard is a kind of duck. All right, here we go. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it, the very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. The next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. Good morning, quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer, but the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the mallards followed them all around the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. I like this place, said Mrs. Mallard, as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in the pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better? Good, said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. But look out, squawked Mrs. Mallard, all in a dither. You'll get run over. And when she got her breath, she added, this is no place for babies. With all those horrid things rushing around, we'll have to look somewhere else. So they flew over Beacon Hill, around the State House, but there was no place up there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim. Oh, there's your bookmarks. Then they flew over the Charles River. This is better, quacked Mr. Mallard. That island looks like a nice, quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden. Yes, said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. That looks like just the right place to hatch ducklings. So they chose a cozy spot among the brushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt. all of their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the mallards called on Michael every single day. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go to visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water or to have her lunch or to count the eggs and make sure they were all still there. One day the ducklings hatched. First came Jack, then came Knack, then came Lack, then Mack, and Knack, and Owack, and Pack and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility to take care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Look at the cute babies. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip, to see what the rest of the river looked like further on. So he set off. "I'll meet you in a week in the public garden," he said. He quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of the ducklings." "Don't worry," said Mrs. Mallard. "I know all about bringing up children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them to walk in a line, to come when they are called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. Oh, I'm turning 2 pages here. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Knack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Quack, Pack, and Quack fell into line just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. There they waddled ashore and waddled along until they came to the highway. Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk went the horns of the speeding cars. Quack went Mrs. Mallard as she thumped back again. Quack, 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 quack went Jack, Knack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Quack, Owack, Pack, and Quack. Just as loud as their little quackers could quack, the cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other hand, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over. He let her cross the street. There she goes. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. Where are they going? Are they going to the city pond in the middle of the park? He called Clancy at headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "A family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned onto Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Owack, Pack, and Quack all marching in a line behind her. Did you notice their kids' names are in alphabetical order? J, K, L, M. You'll have to see it. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud, she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with extra swing in her waddle. Look at those cute baby ducks. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was a police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the Ducklings could march across the street. There they go. Right into the public garden. There they go. Inside the gates, they all turned around to say thank you to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. When they reached the pond and swam across to the island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them just as he promised. The Ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long, they followed the swan boats and ate peanuts. And when nightfall came, they swam to their little island and they would go to sleep. The end. Pretty cute, huh? I will post some pictures after this, like I said.
Are you looking up to say hi? Hi, Tiny. Tiny the turtle.